Okay, everyone, it's 5:30. It's Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. This is our monthly meeting of the Palm Springs Airport Commission. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Sam, we're going to have to take the lead with this.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Andrew has the agenda proposal.
Yes, I didn't have to go.
Okay, good. We do a roll call, please.
Banks? Here. Merriman?
Here.
Caldwell?
Here.
Corcoran?
Here.
Delgado? Evanstein?
Here.
Feldman?
Yes.
Fong?
Here.
Keel?
Here.
Martin?
Here.
McDermott?
Here.
Hart?
Here.
I?
Here.
Sanalaska?
Yes.
Wise? Here. Wiseman?
Here.
Young?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Awesome. David, welcome back. Glad you're here live. Appreciate your being back here. All right. The agenda has been posted. Now we have to accept the agenda. Now, Andrew, we want to remove the approval for the September 18th commission minutes because we still have some work to do on them. Is that right?
That is correct.
We take a roll call on the agenda, please.
We have an exception, a motion to accept the agenda.
Please. Motion to accept. Second. Let's go for it.
Banks?
Yes.
Merriman?
Yes.
Caldwell?
Yes.
Corcoran?
Yes.
Evanstein?
Here.
Feldman?
Yes.
Fong?
Aye.
Keel?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
McDermott?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
I?
Yes.
Sanalaska?
Yes.
Wise?
Yes.
Wiseman?
Yes.
And Young?
Yes. Thank you all. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. I believe we have one person. Is that right?
We do have one public comment.
Very good.
Hi, commissioners, I'm Gary Wexler. I'm speaking on public comments if I need to leave, but I did want to address you before tonight's presentation. First of all, I want to thank all of you for over the last couple of years. I feel that you have recognized the importance of this building as an iconic historic resource, and I know that I appreciate your outreach to the community. I know you've spoken to different preservation groups, and last month I saw the southern location for the parking garage. I think that was due to feedback from a lot of us in the community. I heard some comments from other commissioners last month that they approved that they had support for the southern location, also because of the way that it could be constructed without interfering with airport functions. I just want to say I support the effort, and I think most of the members of preservation groups that I've talked to also support the southern location. But I want to refer to, want to address the north location that has been discussed, and the ease of use for passengers. Regarding the north, I'm very concerned that I want to ask you to please respect the integrity of the historic civic center, that all of the buildings across the street, City Hall, and the airport being the terminus to the civic center. All of them are recognized on the National Registry. All of them are important to our city. I know that there's a lot of support for the north location because it doesn't require a shuttle for ease of use and all of that. So I just want to bring one thing into this conversation that I was asked last year, along with a couple other members of the preservation community, to work with the Gensler Architects on the baggage wing extension project that's currently underway. We were asked to work with your other hired consultant for the county, and they listened to our concerns, and we were asked later to review the drawings that Gensler produced, and the three of us all gave it an easy thumbs up. You guys did it right. We were very happy to see that the concerns for respecting the nature and integrity of the building was carried on. I would hope if you end up going with the north location, please consider that front view that faces the airport loop. That, somehow Gensler did a good job with extending the baggage lane. How can we make these two buildings look harmonious? The big concern with the north location is the sight lines to the mountains being obstructed, both from the terminal and from new phase one, plane, locations. And rather than looking at the back side of the building or seeing the buildings blocking, maybe the architects can figure out how to set the project back further. I know you're talking about phasing it in, because of cost restraints, and, I think that there is still a lot of work that in terms of public feedback, we totally appreciate that you're having these public forums, and whatever you decide that you are going to ultimately present to city council, we will be involved. We want to be able to let city council know our concerns, and we're wanting the best possible project to be produced. We want aesthetic architecture that matches, that will feel at home with the rest of the civic center. So keep up the work, please, communicating with us in the community. It's a very positive thing. Not everybody agrees on what's going on, but it's happening, and we want to make sure that we can help get it going in the right direction. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody on Zoom that needs to join us in public?
We have no public comments.
Good. Are we ready to go? Do we get to anything else?
That's it. We can move on to the ordinance.
Because we're not doing September minutes. Okay, got it. Harry, you have introductions?
Absolutely, so
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's what I said.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes to approve.
Oh, I'm sorry, let's go to
Yep,
business.
sorry. Okay. We have a motion for-
I'm sorry, it was the July 10th minutes we have to approve. We're pushing off to September 12th. I need a motion. September 18th.
Oh. I will.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Please.
Banks,
Yes.
Behrman,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Evansteiner,
Yes.
Feldman.
Yes.
Baum, Keel,
Here, yes.
Martin,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Hart,
Stay.
Aye,
Yes.
Sam Laska,
Abstain.
Wise,
Yes.
Wiseman,
Yes.
and Young.
Yes. Somebody else means September 12th?
Yes.
Okay. I need a motion to approve September 12th. We have it. Second? Got it. Henry?
Banks,
Yes.
Behrman,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Evansteiner,
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
Baum,
Abstain.
Keel,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Hart,
Stay.
Aye,
Yes.
Sam Laska,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Wiseman,
Yes.
and Young.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Now, introductions.
hey, thank you. I just want to introduce the commission, Arlen Singh. He's our new project manager for the airport. It's been on, how long has it been on?
Little 2 months.
About 2 months. And he's getting up to speed on a lot of our projects, doing a very fine job of that. But you'll be hearing from him later this evening with regard to some Measure J stuff, but I just wanted to put a face to the name before he started.
Thank you.
Is he dedicated to us?
He is dedicated to us.
Oh, great.
You define us.
Seriously.
The aviation department, he's not plugged out to another department.
All right. So welcome. We're glad you're here. Working for us. So, all right, let's go to 8A, master plan update. Eric.
Okay, I believe that's me, and I do want to apologize ahead of time. I am feeling a little under the weather today, but I did want to start, we've got a long master plan discussion tonight. I did want to start with a little bit of a status briefing and somewhat of a reset on the master plan. I think we had a number of commissioners that came in mid-master plan, and we didn't really give you the opportunity to level set on what was happening. And also, we got into the weeds a little bit on the master plan, which is intended to be very general and high level. So I kind of want to reset, take a step back, kind of explain what we're doing here, make sure everybody's comfortable with it, and then we can move on. So got the presentation of what is a master plan. The airport master plan provides a roadmap for efficiently meeting our aviation demand through the foreseeable future. And in our case, if you were to ask the FAA, the foreseeable future is about 20 years. So I want to reinforce that the master plan, yes, it is a city document, but it is also an FAA document. And primarily for airport use, we use it as an FAA document. And the reason we do that is because we're telling the FAA what we anticipate asking them for in terms of funding, in terms of programming, what we may need their support on in terms of community outreach, things like that. So the master plan document, excuse me, with the FAA is recommended every 10 years. The study is funded by the FAA. It's funded under a grant fund, so we're about 2 years into our grant fund now. And it's governed through federal regulations and specifically through Advisory Circular 150/5070/60s. For those of you who don't know what advisory circulars are and may not be familiar with them, commercial airports, they are governed by advisory circulars. They hold the weight of law. So we have to follow to the very prescriptive processes based on those advisory circulars. Again, it's also the city's plan. It's intended to meet regulatory requirements. It's intended to manage growth and demand. But it's also intended for us to make our funding requests to the FAA so that they can make their requests to Congress. That's really the role of a master plan. Slide, please. The master plan does not typically evaluate architectural design or specific design elements. It doesn't typically evaluate infrastructure design such as Wi-Fi, utilities, regional transit routes, things like that. Or strategic or business plan. So we're doing those strategic and business plans separately for that reason, because the master plan doesn't address those. Slide. It's there to evaluate the existing and future aeronautical demand for aircraft and passenger cargo. So if you recall, or most of you may recall, about a year ago, one of the first steps of the master planning process was to do an aviation study to understand what that demand might be for the number and type of aircraft coming into the facility, as well as the number of passengers coming to the facility. And the idea behind that is so that we can plan to meet those growth goals over time, understanding that we may not necessarily be able to influence what happens with the market, right? So we're projecting 6.5 million passengers. We have to plan for those 6.5 million passengers no matter what. However, over that 20-year lifespan, we may not hit 6.5 million passengers. So that's the benefit of a master plan. It's supposed to be flexible so that we can adjust and address things as needed as time goes on. Slide, please. You've seen a version of this slide before provided by Mead & Hunt, but this is a little bit different. This basically tells you where exactly we are in the master planning process right now. So we started with the study design. So I gave Mead & Hunt some marching orders on what they needed to address. Then we went through a period of surveying. So they surveyed what the facilities were like, what the pavement was like, what the geometry was like. They forecasted our growth. They looked at sustainability and fueling. We identified from there, based on that 6.5 million passenger growth or that metric, the facility requirements needed. So that's what we've been discussing with you all. And now you see it in the red circle, we're talking about development concepts and environmental overview and preferred development strategy. If you notice to the right of that, there's still more to go, right? There's still stuff to do. So we still have to develop an implementation plan and a financial plan and an ALP drawing set. So just so you know, the decisions that are made today aren't the final decisions. We're working through those decisions in a very systematic way. So what happens after the master plan adoption? So we go through that entire process on the previous slide. And then what happens is the airport staff, once it's approved, determines which project in the master plan to pursue first. So once the master plan has gone through the approval process, both at city council level and at the FAA level, we then internalize that document and we say, okay, based on what we're seeing today, we need to do X project. One specific project, and we'll design one specific project. So for example, if we knew that we had gate constraints, we would start with designing the concourse expansion. That concourse expansion, the North Concourse expansion, is anticipated to be 7 gates. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to design for 7 gates. It just means that we are looking at how do we meet the capacity and the growth needs that we're currently experiencing and projected through the foreseeable future. I wasn't ready for the slides. And then what happens is the airport staff determines a funding strategy for that project. So what we've done in the master plan process is we've identified funding feasibility in the master plan process. But then at the project level, we're actually looking at what budget do we have available, where we're going to get those resources from, how we're going to make develop strategies to get the money that we need to finish those projects. And then we apply that to that specific project. So just like we're having the discussion about funding right now, we're gonna have that discussion all over again when we get to the project level. So we're gonna make sure everybody understands that. Then we work with our consultants on a draft basis of design and a project definition report. So that's when we really start to get into the details about what that project actually looks like. And then go through an iterative consultation process with the airport commission, the council, and the community on what the ultimate design will be. So there are a number of steps there and a number of touch points there that we go through before we actually execute on a project. Next slide. So what are we trying to answer right now? Couple things we're trying to answer. You can take the slide. One thing we're trying to answer is the location of the rental car facility. We've been going back and forth on that for a few months, but we're not designing the rental car facility. So think of it as blocks on a page, right? We're trying to figure out what the location will be, what's most convenient to the passenger, but also what will get through an environmental process, and what will meet our design needs through the next 20 years. That's basically what we're trying to design. But for the purposes of specifically the rental car facility, what we need to know tonight is what the maximum height of that rental car facility needs to be, whether it's in the north or the south location or both. So we need to decide that tonight. And then what we need to do tonight is recommend an approved conceptual development plan with a determination of those first 2 above. So everybody clear on that? All right, next slide. What happens next? So what we do is we package up the conceptual development plan and we take that to the city council and we ask the city council to give us the green light to start the CEQA and NEPA process. And what happens in that CEQA and NEPA process is additional stakeholder outreach. And that's where we really start to assess what can reasonably be done based on the budget that we have and what can reasonably be done based on the space needs that we have. So we start to parse out what can actually be done at the project level. We revise the plan based on the CEQA and NEPA process. We finalize the airport layout plan drawing set, and that gets sent to both the city council and the FAA for approval. And that's kind of the final master plan step. And then we adopt the master plan from that point. Next slide, please. All right, so with that understanding, I want to make sure that everybody's questions are answered. So are there questions about how this process plays out or how it's supposed to play out? Leo has a question.
Questions?
Okay, if there are no questions, then we have a couple of items of business relative to the master plan tonight. And I think I'm going to start with Chief Alvarado because I believe in the last meeting that I didn't attend, there were questions about the ARC station and its role in the master plan. So Chief, you want to?
Absolutely. Are you guys able to tee up my PowerPoint presentation? If there's no PowerPoint, I'm just gonna leave.
What does that mean?
And I can resend it, Victoria, if you can too.
No, yeah, but can you keep it up?
While they do that, good evening, everyone. Paul Alvarado, Palm Springs Fire Chief. I've been the fire chief here now for 18 months, and I've only had the pleasure of being here once before, but I see a lot of new faces and some friends too. So good to see everybody. Harry and I tell you what, talking about a director partner, couldn't ask for a better one. We meet frequently, at least once a month, and we have our monthly meeting with the city manager. And I have a passion for the airport. I came from Long Beach. I oversaw the Long Beach Airport for a number of years. All of their ARP operations, I was their direct point of contact and moved on through different ranks, through my 27 years in Long Beach. But, so happy and proud to be here in Palm Springs. And one of the things that attracted me to this job was the airport, right? A great reputation and the growth and opportunity that we have here and to be a part of that. So couldn't be happier to be here tonight and talk a little bit about what the fire department master plan looks like. And great timing, because as they're doing ours, Harry's doing his, and the two consultants are in lockstep. So it couldn't be a better time for the city, with two important projects going on, along with all the other ones going on in the city. So great, so we have it up here now. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our ARP station. So our ARP station is on El Cielo, 300 North El Cielo, which is just right up the street. Built in 1976. So out of our ARP station, if you look at the picture up on top on the airport side, there's 3 ARP apparatus that run out of there. And I tell you, Harry and the team here just procured us a brand new 3,000 gallon per minute ARP apparatus, state of the art. So all of our equipment is very new on the front line. We operate a 24 hours, 7 days a week operation there. On the ARP apparatus, I have 2 people per apparatus. There's a captain and an engineer on one. There's 2 engineers on the other and an engineer on the other one. So we're very well staffed. And what we're doing is we're meeting the index for the airport, the size of the aircraft that typically flies out of Palm Springs Airport. Now, if you look on the city side, which is the photo below, we also run street responses that cover street responses for the rest of the city. And that's a truck company with 4 firefighters on the truck company. And that's the one with the large aerial apparatus up on top. So it's a large station with a lot of people, a lot of movement. I also have a battalion chief that runs out of that station as well. And the battalion chief oversees all 5 fire stations in the city. Next slide. So this is just a photo. We just finished our annual training. And we're actually able to do this in Palm Springs. We had a vendor come out. They brought out a simulated fuselage, and they're able to burn liquefied petroleum gas. So our firefighters get hands-on and they train to make sure they're very familiar with strategy and tactics. And this is just one piece of the annual training that we do. Every month there's ongoing training that our firefighters do. Next slide. So the master plan that I'm doing is known in the fire service as a standard of cover. What does it take for the fire department to cover the 90+ square miles and all the different target hazards, including the airport of Palm Springs? So we move on to the next slide. So one thing we want to look at, number one, is where do all the people live in Palm Springs? So our consultant went through, and if you look at the legend there, the darker the color, so we'll go to the very darkest color, over 4,500 people per square mile are located within that area. The lighter, it goes from 500 to 1,000 people per square mile. And if there's no color at all, 500 or less per square mile. So if you look what our population density is, Fire Station 2 is a station all the way to the right in the center where the airport is. And just south of us, basically where the Home Depot and those different shopping centers just south of that. For our area, that's one of our high population density areas over there. That's one of the highest, over 4,500 people per square mile live in that area. Then if you look at the Tocowitz and the Sunrise area, that's our other high density population area. So what does that mean for us? More calls for service, right? More EMS calls, more calls for fires. And we'll go on to the next slide and show how that looks. So to the left is our emergency medical service calls. So you'll see how that lines up. Again, fire station 2 on the right where the airport is. The darker the blue, the more emergency medical responses that we're going on. So you'll see that dark blue color right around station 2. My busiest area is downtown, where our fire station 1 is, and to the north of, in the gateway area, that's also our busiest area. But fire station 2 is a very busy area for us. So that's why it's important that not only do I have aircraft response coming on the airfield side, but I also have fire response to the city side. So it's a dual purpose fire station for me. To the right is our fire responses. The darker the color, the more fire responses we had, and this is over a 5-year period. So again, that Sunrise Hawkwoods area, because of the high density populations living there in multifamily dwellings, you'll see I have a high density of fires over the past 5 years in that area. Still lighter color, but there's still some density below down near the Ramon area as well. This falls into Fire Station 2's area. So again, this is just justifying me as the fire chief, why I need to have good response coverage on Fire Station 2. That's a guy. I got to see. So next slide. So we want to talk about travel time, right? And what this slide is specifically to Fire Station 2. So the green area is what can I cover in 4 minutes? And that is what the National Fire Protection Agency says that a fire engine should be able to travel to their first response area to whether it's fire or EMS time. And that's once the firefighters get in the fire engine, they travel and they're on scene. It should be 4 minutes. So that green area shows how well I do at a Fire Station 2. So you'll see where we're traveling mostly south of Fire Station 2 and then over to the west. Now in Palm Springs, because I'm not a Los Angeles Fire Department, I don't have a fire station every mile and a half, we're a little more spread apart. I'm looking at a 5-minute travel time, right? I need to be a little bit more generous with what my expectations are. And you'll see with the blue area, when I add another minute of travel time, you'll see how much further I get. I start getting up into the Vista Chino area. I start getting over to the Ascena development. I move further towards the downtown area and even further south. So I have overlapping coverage because it's not uncommon in Palm Springs for us to have multi-calls at the same time. Fire Station 2 and Fire Station 1 make a call simultaneous, and I'll have to have another engine come in and cover that area. But you'll see how important that fire coverage is at a Fire Station 2, what the demand is, and in order to meet my coverage citywide, how I'm covered. If you look from the top on the left, Fire Station 3 all the way up there on Racket Club, the next stop down on the left is Fire Station 1. It's right there on Indian Canyon. And then all the way down on the south is Fire Station 4. And then you go to the right, the next red dot that butts up right up against our neighboring city. That's Fire Station 5, and then to the north is Fire Station 2. So we're in really good locations, but I have to have all those fire stations working together to make sure I have adequate coverage. Next slide. This is just a great picture right here, a classic picture of how long the Palm Springs Fire Department's been around. But I want to thank you for your time and any questions that the group may have for me.
Questions? I have a question. In your standard of cover, and I'm relatively new to the area, I've been here for about 4.5 years. Wondering about how mutual aid plays into that. I mean, cities kind of roll into each other. What does that look like? What do you consider that under your standard of cover?
That is exactly what it is. So there's 2 types of help that we get from our neighboring agencies. Cathedral City, right, that's the way to the east of us. And then we're covered by Riverside County as well. So Desert Hot Springs is serviced by Riverside County Fire Department. So we're continuously helping each other, but it's not automatic. It's mutual aid. So what that looks like is their dispatch center has to call my dispatch center and say, my fire engine's busy, can you come and assist? It's a good way of doing things, and that's how we do master mutual aid throughout California. If there's a large, brush fire burning, we'll call and ask for assistance. But even better is automatic aid. And that's something that we're working towards right now. Working towards with the city manager and the rest of the team is upgrading our computer-aided dispatch so that our fire engines have auto vehicle locators in them. So when there's a call going on and Cathedral City happens to be right on the border of Palm Springs, and my fire engine 5 happens to be on a call, dispatch is gonna see Cathedral City as just an available resource, and we'll put them on the call, even if it's in Palm Springs. So that's my goal over the next 2 years, once we implement that computer-aided dispatch, is we'll have ABLs in every piece of apparatus. And then it's just gonna be seamless. So there's no calling and you know what, how can we help you? And let me check with the time sheet, let me see if that's okay. It'll be automatic. So we're working towards that. I want to have even better service, but the relationships I have right now with Chief Contreras in Cathedral City and the fire chiefs that cover Riverside County, outstanding. Great partners. Yes, and sorry for having your cedar.
Oh, I know. For fire station 3, so what's in green and blue is the fire response, 4 minutes and 5 minutes. And then 5 minutes is obviously the max that you would want to respond to some of the calls. But in fire station 3, you have higher density and then you have a darker green, so you have some of those, you know, a lot of calls coming in. And so then does like fire station 1 and 2 then respond to 3? So I guess if you look at so here you have the green rounds and the blue. So does it not expand over here since fire station 3 has a higher density? So are we not then pulling from the 2 stations?
So that's a good question. And I don't know if we go back to the 4 and 5 minute travel times. So that's a great question because I do have to cover when I have different calls for service going on simultaneously. Fire Station 1, that district is my busiest district. So our city runs almost 13,000 calls for fire service annually. And those calls are really, the majority of them was divided by Station 1, which is the busiest. The next busiest is Station 3, and then Station 2 goes back and forth with Station 3. But I have 2 units running out of my downtown station. I have a paramedic squad that has 2 paramedics. It's basically a pickup truck. So the first EMS call that goes out, that truck will go out and respond to that call. So I still have a fire engine in the station downtown. But the next call for service will be that fire engine. The next call that will come in, engine 3 will come down and cover that call. If engine 3 goes out, the squad will cover the next call in Station 3's area. So the squad is a really important piece for me, right? And I'm just trying to keep as many pieces available. And working with the city manager, we start forecasting more residential population in another part of our city, larger industrial buildings being put in. We're planning on a remodel for Fire Station 3 to put a squad at Fire Station 3 as well. Because I don't want to pull more resources from different parts of the city to cover my 2 busiest areas. So that is my plan on the go forward, and we're meeting with an architect now to, you know, when that station was built, it was built for a couple of people. And now I want to put 6 people in there, the same thing with our downtown fire station. So we're working on a lot of things right now to make sure as our population, full-time population is increasing, my call for service, I'm averaging about 5% busier every year in the fire department. Just different types of calls for service as more people come and visit. We're planning for that. That's part of our master plan. So I hope that answers your question. So and that truck company may be called in. I'm telling you, for a structure fire, absolutely, 100%. I'm calling all my resources, and as the battalion chief arrives on scene, he may go, you know what, I don't need truck 2, you can go back to quarters, I can handle this with 2 engines. But because of the size city we are, I bring everything in, because you just never know.
And so, and the reason I asked is because we do contract with CAL FIRE, but when we have those, structural fires that we're talking about, and then, you know, we have a division chief who covers obviously multiple stations in the town. But then we'll pull from like mega and thermal if we need to, because, you know, all the trucks can be swapped. And so I was just wondering how it gets laid out and higher density.
And I'll tell you right now, speaking with the Riverside County chief that covers Desert Hot Springs, they're looking at increasing their staff. And that engine, it's a single engine that runs over 6,000 calls a year. That reminds me back when I was in Long Beach. So they're gonna put a paramedic squad in Desert Hot Springs because my engine 3 was getting drugged into Desert Hot Springs. And if you can imagine the travel time from Racket Club all the way into Desert Hot Springs, now I'm leaving a big void. So we're all working together here in the valley to make sure that we're covering each other, but we're also looking towards the future. right? Everyone is catching on how beautiful this valley in Palm Springs is. It's not a secret. More people are coming in living full time, so I need to be prepared for that.
Chief, what are the implications, for our long-range plan in terms of how you look at the coverage that will be required if we double the number of appointments here? Not the number of flights, but double the number of people in and out. What is the impact over 20 years, do you think, for?
Well, you know, it's interesting. So, coming from, Long Beach, very similar index, similar types of planes, similar types of travel. But we all do it a little bit different, right? What the FAA requires is number of apparatus, water on board the apparatus, and extinguishing agent. But we all staff it a little bit different. What I'm looking for in the future is I've got a captain on one of those ARP apparatus, and then the other two apparatus have engineers. At some point, I'm probably gonna have to do a squad type deployment, because as the emergency medical calls to the terminal, to aircraft is gonna increase with going from 3 million passengers to 6 million passengers in the next 10 years. I'm gonna have to have a smaller deployment on the airfield that'll get over there and still keep my large apparatus in service. But I'm looking towards that. I'm looking, in the future on that. It's gonna be a matter of shifting people around, and it'll probably be that captain moving on to that smaller piece of apparatus, but probably a firefighter driver handling that and keeping a large ARP apparatus in service for the large aircraft incident. So that's my plan for the future. That's gonna be some communication with the airport director as we move towards that.
Other questions for Chief?
Yes, sir.
At the present time, how often is a response from the fire department, either fire or EMS, needed on the airport campus?
It varies. It really varies. If you look at emergency medical services, we track that. I don't have the number in front of me now, but it's a few. It's a few. As we track them every week, we look at our calls for service. They may come out here once or twice a week for an emergency medical service call to the terminal, or maybe someone had an inbound medical emergency and we're gonna be deploying when it lands. Those aren't uncommon, but it's not like I'm doing 10 or 20 of those a day. The alerts, which means that an aircraft is having a mechanical issue and potentially a fire, those are even less frequent. But I tell you, I just had a plane crash last weekend, a general aviation plane, a 4-seater, and thankfully everyone walked away, but I still had to mitigate a fuel leak, and that takes time. And that took the ARP people working with our operations crew here. We had an aircraft fire the month before, general aviation. Thankfully, before the plane took off, they had an engine fire. My crews responded, 3 minutes, first unit on scene. We met the FAA time, put the fire out, that person walked away from that accident. So we've had a little run of them. I hope we're not starting a trend, but I'm glad my people are trained and ready. Right, Fred?
Just a quick follow-up.
Sure.
So if there's a pan, do you folks respond to that typically?
I'm sorry, what was that?
If there's an alert, I don't know what the word is,
It'd be a mayday call.
it's like a mayday, but it's not an urgent response, I guess, for instance, I don't know what it's called here. Where somebody says, there's a problem, wheels won't go down, we've lost an engine, something that's not immediate. Do
Absolutely.
you folks respond to those?
100%. And I tell you, there's no call, and as a battalion chief, when I used to run the airport in Long Beach, there's no call that I can prepare, get my crews ready, give them assignments, and know when that aircraft ETA, estimated time of arrival, is. And I told my crews, and I tell my crews now, take that time to get ready, right? Make sure people are in the position to have an assignment, so when that aircraft comes down, we're ready. But absolutely, we absolutely respond to that. And again, that's all the ARP apparatus, and I'll bring units in from the city to make sure we have people on ready for that.
Yeah, just so grass fire situation like Desert Palisades a couple months ago, I think, where there's aircraft that is called in. How does that get coordinated with your people on the ground? And then also, what sort of impact do those have on air traffic to the airport and stuff like that? Is there a shutdown typically when there's aircraft that are fighting those kinds of fires to the airport, or does
And that call is definitely gonna be on the airport director, and if it's something that's close enough, Harry and I, we're a text message buddies. You know what, I'm texting this guy on the weekend, or he's texting me, So I'm gonna give him a heads up along with the city manager to notify, hey, just to let you know I've got this going on, but that particular fire over there by the Desert Palisades was far enough away that I didn't really have a concern for that.
Right.
But the aircraft request, that's a mutual aid area.
Okay.
So, Bureau of Land Management, the federal fire department, Riverside County, CAL FIRE, we all share a piece of that. But typically those will start in Palm Springs. And then our concern is gonna start working its way up to the mountain,
Right.
up towards the tram. So I make phone calls, get everyone on scene, and essentially we're all at the command post making decisions together on that. And that aircraft is typically coming from CAL FIRE, Riverside County, usually Henry Ryan.
So to answer your second part of your question, if it's a little closer to the airport, that's in coordination not only with the chief, but now I'm working with their traffic control to make sure that, that we're making sure that the airspace is safe. And if it's not safe, that's when I start making decisions about closing runways and shutting things down.
Okay, that's on you. Okay,
Chief, thank you.
And I think it was appreciated.
I appreciate the time. Thank you, everybody, and I hope I can do this more frequently. Eric keeps me on once a year, but maybe I can. Everybody always on. Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Okay, Eric?
And so, we're still on the master plan topic, and I think we need to talk about, rental car facility now. And so we've got Meet and Hunt online. And maybe Stephanie, if you want to try and introduce this, and then we can have a discussion around it.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I know I've been on these calls before. I'll just reintroduce myself. I'm Stephanie Nico, Meet and Hunt planner, aviation planner. Ryan could not attend today. He had a commitment that he couldn't get out of, and he was upset that he can't be on. So I think everyone in the room, and Mark, if you want to jump in, I know you guys were part of these conversations, but I think everyone in the room is familiar that either the last commission meeting or the one before that, we presented a few rental car center alternatives, and I'm going to share my screen. That's okay. Yes.
Actually,
Everyone-
Stephanie, if you hold on for a second, we're gonna, get Mark in here, and he's gonna add some context, and then we'll go to yours.
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Yep, that's totally fine.
Thanks,
Mark?
Great, so I'm gonna step over here because we're tight on space. Hello, everyone, Mark Dwyer. I'm the stakeholder lead for the master plan, and joining me is Debbie Chen, from our team with Daily Strategies. We work, through, Meet and Hunt on the master plan, and we've done, all the stakeholder outreach. I first want to start off by thanking the commissioners who joined us and helped us secure meetings with, the cities of the Coachella Valley. That was hugely impactful to have you, first of all, help us secure those opportunities to engage with the councils, but for those of you who joined us and introduced us, it's greatly appreciated to have that warm welcome at each one of your cities. So thank you for that. And also want to thank Harry for dedicating many of your staff to join us to answer your questions. That commitment was warmly received. Jeremy, Victoria, was amazing to have you all there, and Ramon joined us as well. And many of the presentations, Jake and I were able to do those together and kind of go bounce back and forth. So it's really great to have members from your staff there joining us as well. And I want to also thank Scott for initiating all this outreach to the stakeholders. You indicated this at the last couple of meetings that we had, how important it is to engage the Palm Springs community, and we've been doing just that. So today, we're going to give an update on all the outreach that we've had. Debbie's going to give that overview, and then I'm going to turn and talk about the responses that we got with the two alternatives, and then give a third alternative as a recommendation based on all that feedback. So Debbie, will you give us an overview on where we're at?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Debbie. I just want to start off by giving a quick snapshot of the stakeholder outreach we've been doing. So we started off with reaching out to 52 stakeholder groups, 3 times each. And as we did these presentations, more groups reached out to us. So from all of these groups, we secured 30 meetings. And of these 30, we've completed 22 so far in the past 2 months. And we have another 8 upcoming. To give you some further insight, these are the meetings that we've completed. And the largest group that we've met with was Palm Springs Women's Club, which was about 80 attendees. The smallest group were the FBOs, with about 4 attendees, but the average size was around 20 attendees.
And most of them were all done in person.
Yeah.
With very few virtual meetings.
Yeah. And we have these 8 upcoming meetings going all the way to March 2025. And we continue to get these requests. We continue to honor these requests and accommodate as needed. So for anyone here or anyone online who's interested in requesting a presentation, we're more than happy to do so. You can contact me at debbie@dailystrat.com to send in any requests. And before I turn it back over to Mark, I just want to quickly mention that we have our airport master plan open house on December 5th at 5:30 p.m. at the Palm Springs Convention Center. So we welcome everyone to come participate and hear about the updates at the airport.
Great, thanks, Debbie. So now I want to talk about the feedback that we received from stakeholders so far. So on the north side, so the advantages that we're hearing from stakeholders is that it's all about convenience and walkability. That there's no shuttle bus needed. This is all obvious, we've talked about this. There's strong support coming from tourism groups and chambers up and down the Coachella Valley. What we're hearing about from disadvantages for the north side is the encroachment and scale of the building to the Webster Terminal and to City Hall. There's also concerns that were shared about blocking mountain views and the views in general. There's also additional costs in it. We've heard that from other stakeholders that there's concerns about those costs. So we've heard from your friends from the Modernist Committee here that are joining us, particularly with the encroachment and scale comments. That's what we heard from them in particular. Next slide. This is the terminal renderings, which you guys have already seen before. We can go to the next slide. This is, I want to emphasize this. This is the view looking to the north with the 5-level structure, 2 buried, 2 above with rooftop parking. This is just for scale. I want to emphasize that. I know Harry mentioned this in his opening remarks. This is not the final design. So I want to make sure everyone in the room knows that, and everyone listening at home understands that process comes much later. So I just wanted to emphasize that and show what that rendering it looks like with that view. Next slide. So now I want to talk about the comments and the feedback that we received from the south side. So this is the advantages that we hear is that it's slightly lower construction costs. It does preserve the mountain views looking at it from the Webster Terminal. It also expands curbside boarding potential by adding a single longer terminal loop. The disadvantages that we're hearing is that it requires that shuttle bus operations. That obviously comes with higher operational costs, and that adds passenger inconvenience from transporting their luggage, kids during hot summer months. These are the things that we're hearing pretty consistently from stakeholders. There's also a concern that with these additional buses, that it adds additional traffic to the terminal loop. We all have, I'm sure, experienced those buses at LAX. Well, we're adding a circulator that will go through, so that's going to be adding a little bit more traffic to the terminal loop by adding those buses. So that's a concern that we've been hearing. So with this feedback, we took this all back to the Master Plan Committee and the airport leadership and discussed what we heard. And we came up with another alternative that we want the commission to look at and weigh in on, and that's what the next slide is. So this is our staff recommendation, is that we would have an alternative 3 considered at the open house in early December. This is a hybrid model. So essentially, it reduces the north side to a 3-level structure, and it reduces that scale and size. It also then would allow us to then put those 2 additional stories on the south side. So it's essentially splitting the operations. So on the south side, we would have a storage facility and a ready return facility, so a QTA. This would be done in phases. This would not be done right from the start. So phase 2 would essentially be that south structure with the south concourse. And phase 1 would be the north site that is lower, which preserves those views and those sightlines. And then it would include the north concourse. So that's the recommendation of this government.
So Mark, in phase 2, if you build this facility in the south side, none of this is customer engaged, right? This is all
Correct.
storage, administration, other things. So, in terms of customer experience, we maintain in the north a whole seamless piece. We just move all the other pieces down there, but it has nothing to do with customers.
Exactly.
Okay.
This also, go ahead.
I can imagine that this is a much more expensive alternative between 1 or 2. Is that a true statement?
So what this does, this is all about phasing. So in phase 1, the north concourse we built with the FAS facility and rent-a-car, and it actually reduces that number from $880 million to $754 million. So it's actually cost less.
But then you add in phase 2.
Phase 2 would come at a later point if the demand at the airport continues to show strong growth. Then phase 2 would be the south concourse plus building that facility. So this phases it out. It also,
So option 1 was $500 million. Option 3 now is, assuming you do phase 2, 500 million, 600 million, 800 million. We know that at all?
I don't have those exact numbers. Maybe Stephanie does for Ween Hunt in terms of the cost breakdown.
The construction cost for the rental car center for phase 2 is approximately, so that's 2 levels above ground. So that's rough order of magnitude, 179 million. And then you would add the cost of the terminal, phase 2 terminal to that.
So what's phase 1 then? Just the rental car?
Just the rental car, construction costs for phase 1 is 322 million, rough order of magnitude.
Yeah, so this provides flexibility for PSP to scale up as demand increases, but it also allows for this to be much more affordable for this first phase.
So on alternative 3, can you just tell us how many stories are in the north rental car facility? How many are below ground? How many are above ground?
It would be 2 below ground and 1 above ground with rooftop parking.
Thank you.
So if you look at, if you go to the next slide there, if there's let's go to 1 more. This is what the scale would look like with that 1 story coming out of when you're looking to the north at that. This is the north facility at 3 levels total, 2 buried, 1 above. Yes.
Go ahead.
Mark, with looking at the south side in the future, north side is already built. Would they make a property purchase for that property that we do not own during that very first initial phase to secure that property?
That would be part of the planning effort that the airport would go through, yes.
The thought is, if possible, we would purchase it in phase 1.
Have the car rental people commented on this too?
They have not.
In alternative 1 and alternative 2, you talk about various advantages and disadvantages. For alternative 3, did anybody raise the disadvantage that alternative 3 cannibalizes limited airport real estate? In other words, it's going to be a building, a facility that is taking up space that right now is used for parking and for Uber and taxis. So it's gonna be taking up that space. And anybody said we shouldn't be using that real estate?
We had a discussion around the real estate, and actually it wouldn't be that much of an impact for us, just because we're building the structure on the southern end of it. So that actually adds capacity. As mentioned just a second ago, we would also have to acquire property, and that would give us immediate capacity to address the real estate issue. So all said and done over 20 years, it should wash out.
In terms of available parking.
Correct.
Just wanted to say to Commissioner Martin, I see your point that, and when you calculate everything you spent over time, it's probably more expensive to build 2 buildings. But I think as Commissioner Caldwell would probably say is that everything in finance, you have a time value of money. And so if you can spend less now, that really, can be less expensive when you add it all on. And I think this is a very clever solution to address the uncertainty of future demands. And we can build this small version of the North Center, and then in the future, if demand reaches the point where we need to expand, we can build. And if parking becomes an issue, then we can build that south center bigger to accommodate more parking. So it really gives us a lot of flexibility, which is important.
The big surprise we had at the last meeting again was we can't raise $500 million to do phase 1 of this thing for the car rental session. So taking this to $300+ million, does that now make this much more feasible to get this done? And I don't know if that's a question for you, Victoria, or what. Do we think that at this level, it'd be much easier to, much more feasible to raise the money for this?
I mean, obviously, to reduce costs to be feasible, it's still a pretty heavy price tag, right? And so, back to what I was saying at the beginning, my intro, is that those are decisions when we get to the project level that we start to really digest and dig into what can we reasonably and feasibly do. And then what are the alternatives or what are the mitigations until we can get to where we so I mentioned the potential land acquisition scenario. I may not be able to build a 3-story facility right now, but what I can do is acquire land, and that gives me an immediate capacity boost where I can put rental cars.
I think what we're looking at is a really elastic solution to a problem that we really haven't clearly defined based on the information we have. I'm building on what Carrie mentioned earlier in this. There is going to be, I believe, a shift towards more mobility solutions, digital services, car sharing, micro sharing, and we may not even need to build any buildings, right? And so to the degree that we can put a pin in it, to your point, and maybe hold back on this massive spend until we see how things are going to be unpacked in the next several years, this particular industry, car rental industry, is ripe for disruption. They haven't had it. And, Uber and Turo and all these car sharing services are pushing them in that direction. I think that's something we should probably look at. And I believe that this particular hybrid model gives you that elastic opportunity.
And Waymo would be another example.
Yeah.
I can make it really quick. I was gonna say the same thing. We don't know what vehicle traffic is gonna be like 20 years from now. And all of the vision is it's gonna be a lot less individual vehicles.
One more thing I would add is that, if the immediate cost of the challenge, we could think about rather than burying 2 stories of this, bury 1, make it a 2-floor above ground structure. The Volvo USO, which is currently there, is a 2-story structure already.
Please.
So the master plan is for how many years do you think?
So the planning period is 20 years. However, if you look at most airport master plans, particularly for our size airport or above, generally they don't get most projects done within their master plan in that 20 years. It's more like 30, 35.
That's what I'm. So if it's 20 years and we do phase 1, it might not be that we don't get to phase 2 after the 20 years. If that's so, then we come back and then do the master plan all together again. And then I'm assuming by then phase 2 would obviously have increased costs by then.
Yeah.
But then would it go through the whole design phase as well, or just have maybe efficiency?
Yeah, so a couple things there. So For our size airport and activity level, master plans are recommended every 10 years, even though it's a 20-year period, they're recommended every 10 years. And the reason is because they're designed to be flexible, they're designed to change as the market changes. So 10 years from now, we may look at this and be like, all this is irrelevant, or it may hold and it's too long. That said, back to what I introed with, all of these things are made project by project. So when we initiate a project, we start evaluating that at the project level. What is the current condition today? What do we expect? And then we design around that.
And then obviously it's based on increased population and service as well. I will say that from going through a lot of developments ourselves, is that when all of this is adopted and the sequence is completed and design is ready, and there's shovel ready, usually we're a little bit more, there's more opportunities for funding when it's ready. So I think there's many opportunities there as once everything is adopted to go after them.
Just so, go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Just a quick question on, based on employment numbers, how we have projected out. How far out will, the north terminal do in the hybrid model? How many years out does it go?
So based on our current employment numbers, I would say we were targeting 2029 for the North Concourse expansion. But again, that doesn't have to be all 7 gates, right? So we can piecemeal that in and maybe design 2 or 3 additional gates, and maybe that's what we need for a while, and then focus on an extension beyond that. So
I guess I was talking about the car rental,
car
the employment number,
that's
right?
right
The
now.
need for car rental, the north facility, how long will it take us before we consider doing the south as well?
Based on what we know right now, for the south facility, that would be about 15 years out.
Which has always been kind of a frustration. This behemoth at 5 stories was built for something that would meet the requirements of 20 years out. And I think the last meeting was, wait a minute, we don't need to do this for all the other reasons. It can go. And number one, and number two, we don't have the money. It's doubtful we could get $500 million to build a 5-story behemoth right now anyways.
Cool. So at the high level, this is conceptualized, everything related to rental car services, both customer facing and servicing and all that would all be in this model, in the North 3-story model, is that correct? Or would it require location of other services off-site?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
So is everything related to rental cars at the highest level of this model would be contained in that north facility? In both customer facing as well as
No, so the north facility would only be for a little bit of storage, but mostly your ready lot. So the cars that are ready to go, customers can pick up and leave with them, as well as the customer service desk. The QTA facilities, in other words, car wash facilities, fueling, that would not be located in the north site. So we would still have to either operate the current site where they are for the rental car companies, or find a solution for that.
But in phase 2 of this vision, Mark, so in phase 2, all the car wash storage would go to the south.
Storage and QTA.
Yeah.
Quick turnaround.
All right.
And so during this first phase, in the first 15 years, when it's the north section, that QTA would still have to be separate even with slightly lower demands.
Most likely, yes.
And no buses would be required, correct?
Correct. Not for the rental car operation. Parking is a separate situation.
Right. Other questions?
I'm sorry, please, just explain on that. So the existing QTA facilities, are they capable of scaling if just for so there's additional costs that hasn't been identified to scale the existing QTA if we just go with the north facility?
Correct.
Okay, do we know any idea what that is?
I don't have an idea. Stephanie, do you have an idea what that additional cost would be?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the full question.
We're asking about scaling the existing QTA facilities, for the rent-a-car operators. And the cost around doing that, if the hybrid model is selected. I don't think that was part of the analysis that was done.
Yeah, we didn't look at that.
It's a step for more, or
And yes, I think there's a couple, questions that we want to have answered, like the height, correct? And so so Stephanie, I'm gonna turn it over to you to walk us through the next pieces.
Sure, and Debbie, if you were sharing, would you mind? Can I use your slides for the renderings? Thank you. And I think we can go to the next slide and we can talk about the size, the height.
This one?
All right. Yes, thank you. So similar to alternative one, we tried to use the same viewports when we're looking at these 3D renderings. So we have one where we're looking bird's eye. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit looking to the west, and you can see that by burying 2 levels and only having 1 level and then parking on the roof, that the rental car center on the north side, that first phase is actually a little bit shorter than the first phase of the concourse or first phase of the terminal expansion. So with only 1 level above ground, we do seem to solve that issue. And then the south side would have 2 levels above ground, compared to 5 when we were talking just about the south side on its own. And I think this might be the last slide in the presentation. Or actually, there's, sorry, Debbie, if you want to go to the next one, we can see a looking out from the terminal. Again, you can see the orange is the first level, 1 level above ground. And again, significantly shorter than the palm trees and again, a little bit shorter than what the first phase of the terminal expansion would be.
in that, those slots above it, is that just providing some sort of, cover for the rooftop parking?
No, we are not showing any covering for the rooftop parking. That is, like Harry mentioned, when this thing goes into design, that's kind of a component that would be discussed then.
It looks like
Mark,
2
do you know what
stories.
those are? They should not be the coverings.
The front of the building is for the rent-a-car, like check-in counters. And then behind it would be actual parking. So it's, that, what you're looking at there is just like the front area where you would go and you would, check in and you get your keys. And then you walk behind and there would be a parking lot behind that. So it's essentially an extension of what you already see today, just continuing around the terminal loop.
But as that's envisioned in here, that's a design level decision, hasn't been decided yet.
Thank you, yes.
So remind me, in this alternative, there's 2
Levels below,
below ground, a street level, and then parking on the road.
correct. Correct, so this is significantly reduced in terms of height from what was originally proposed.
And do you need to decide 2 levels below or 1 level below today? or
That's
can you
what
have-
we're recommending is that we have it 2 levels below, because of the stakeholder feedback we received.
And could you say how much it would be saved if we had 1 level below and 2 up, since we already have a USO building that's 2 in that spot?
Those numbers, Stephanie, I don't know if you have any of those numbers.
Yeah,
It's
so-
basically a 30% savings, I'm sorry, a 30% cost for every floor you drop down lower. So it adds 30% every time you go one level lower.
30% of 1/3, 10%.
So it's a $50 million or $30 million.
It's
Uh,
roughly.
So quickly in my spreadsheet, one of our teaming partners has recommended that we use 30%, like Mark said, every level you go below ground. That may be very, very conservative, but again, that's something that when you can flesh that out a little bit better. So using the numbers that we've been using and adjusting one level below grade, 2 levels above grade, I'm getting roughly 296 million. So that does drop a bit.
How much of the savings is that?
It's like 30 million. Oh, you were 330 before?
323, let's say, and then 296.
Interesting. I thought it'd be like 130. Please.
So, from our last meeting, I think one of the things that we requested to have the consultants to look at is to do another review of all the costs, because it just seemed really conservatively high to safely not have any surprises on the cost end whenever we get around to that. I'm not as concerned as the numbers of how much for an additional level or whatnot, because I think all of that still has to be worked through with more detailed estimates. As you already mentioned, it was almost a no starter for both options from last meeting. If we don't even have bonding capacity to fund either project at 550. So that's that was where we were going with taking another look at the numbers.
Well, so I kind of want to interject here a little bit. So that's what I was alluding to when I started this whole master plan discussion, is the finance piece comes way after that.
I understand that, sir.
And so it's
I
hard
also recognize that once you go to council, they're going to be asking. You need to have not a detailed plan on the numbers, but you need to have pretty good estimates. And I think when you throw out the kind of numbers of $500 million, it's a shock to the system. And I would think the city council would, be challenging you on the numbers before they're comfortable to proceed with anything. And I get exactly what you're saying. You're just trying to get incremental steps going to get this in front of decision makers to keep things moving.
No, what I'm saying is we're not even supposed to be talking numbers yet.
Okay, but I'm saying if those numbers are reasonable still, then you need to start considering a third option, and that's doing nothing. Because, the city isn't going to be committing its own general fund resources for backfilling what the airport can't cover. That's just my thought. I do have one quick question. I saw on the map here, a new traffic light appeared down by kind of near the midpoint of that north building. Does that imply, was the traffic study updated for this hybrid?
Stephanie or Brian maybe can answer that question.
Brian, I'll pass it to you. And Brian, we can't, you might be on mute.
Yeah, his sound's not working.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. So the traffic study was not updated for this third alternative, but based on the type of traffic being intermittent between alternative 1 and alternative 2, and the nature of how vehicles are going to be traveling between these two, there's not going to be any significant change in terms of level of service. So as far as considering these 3 alternatives, traffic really is, they're sort of a wash. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Please.
Just a question, you call it QTA, the carnival prep that's done currently in a different location, and this would keep that where it's at or something different. In the plan of either having the north or the south and all of that happening in either location, obviously that freed up that land. What are we losing by having to keep that going? And what's the impact of what your thoughts were, what that land use was going to be?
So interestingly enough, the areas where those are located, those are actually supposed to be temporary use, and they've been there over a decade now. That land is designated airside capacity, so we should be using it for aircraft operations.
Aircraft storage.
But if we do the hybrid, we're still gonna need the use of that, right?
Correct. At least for a little while, yes.
And Harry, I'll just mention quickly that on our conceptual development plan, we did leave those functions there. But obviously, once they move, then you can use that for hangars or other aeronautical activity. So in the near term, there's no effect by having to keep them there for the first 15 years or whatever that may be before phase 2 gets constructed.
So Harry, what are we looking for tonight? Are we looking for a vote on a hybrid?
Yes, so I guess that would be the first vote, a vote on whether we recommend this alternative, and then a vote, if that's the case, a vote on the height of the rental car facility, both in north and south locations.
And the implication this would have is that on the 5th of December, then we would lead with this. And this would be the significant change that's been made based on the feedback we've got. Right. Let's make sure that we have, all know where we're going here. That's correct. All right. Any other questions?
And sorry, we're supposed to vote, not really having a clear sense of cost.
So that's how the master plan process is set up. This is a vote to recommend that we start the secret process. What happens after the secret process, after we've gone through this analysis of what it will actually take to build it, whatever we discover, that's when we get the estimated cost, and that's when we can make decisions about whether we move forward or not.
It's always been at the end of this master plan process.
I just from the city side, we do a general plan, but we do have to adopt it, it's required, so here we're at the 20-year mark. So, I mean, something does need to be adopted, we can't just keep carrying it out. But it does need to be implemented, and it is also important, the CEQA is a really lengthy process, but once it's completed, we can go after those needs. I know we lost the ATP because of the funds there, because the CEQA wasn't completed, but once it's implemented, once it's shovel ready, then you can go after the grant monies because the design and everything else is already available to be provided. You know, sometimes the money obviously holds up many projects, and it's unfortunate, but that's just what we face. But we do need something to deliver to folks, to stakeholders, to partners, organizations, and to some of these grant funders.
So, thank you.
Just quickly, silly question probably, but if the north car rental in this hybrid scenario, if it lasts for 15 years based on our claimants, which may be optimistic, who knows how things are gonna go, we even have to go with a hybrid and not just a smaller north?
So that's, as weird as it seems and as strange as this process seems, that's why the master plan process is designed the way it is. It's meant to be flexible, so that we can look at it. If it doesn't make sense for the time, or if it doesn't make sense for the future, we can change it. So that's why you're not getting numbers right now. That's why we're not talking about what the design looks like, things like that, because it's meant to change over time based on the current condition.
And I think, for our public session on December 5th, it's really important that the public understands that we're nowhere near design. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion, as Gary mentioned, about, the success of looking at the baggage lane piece, which viewers love nicely the Webster building. I would think that with all the design expertise we have in this community, we would probably move in that direction for whatever this is gonna look like after. But we're not even there yet. And now a lot of people are chomping their bit to say, we wanna see what it's gonna look like. And right now, we're at this more strategic point of just saying, how much space do we need to build, knowing that when we get to the design phase, we'll tap into the community, and get as much support as we possibly can in insights.
I was wondering if, before we go to the vote, it might be possible to do a public comment from the preservation folks on their assessment of the difference between 1 story and 2 stories for this facility.
Robert's Rules of Order. Can we do that?
Sure.
All right, let's open public comments. Who wants to go first? Just state your name and where you live.
Say your name for the record. You got
Palm Springs.
3 minutes.
Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm an architectural historian. I was most recently on the planning commission until I turned out. I'm on the Historic Site Preservation Board, and I wrote the National Register nomination for the airport, which has been discussed tonight, is why it's historic resources, because it's on the National Register of Historic Places. So the first question I have, though, has to do with height. You're gonna vote on height, you didn't discuss the height, so that I wanna know. Second, you mentioned CEQA, but what about NEPA? Because NEPA is part of the environmental process. And in the NEPA process, as you know, you're dealing with historic resources. A National Register of Historic Places property, in fact, there's 3 of them all in this area. So you'd have to look at the effects of the new building on historic resources. So that would be part of the analysis that would have to happen at the same time as CEQA, so CEQA and NEPA go together. So, from what I've heard, it sounds very promising, and I think that you get great support from the preservation community. But that's just because we haven't really had a chance to analyze anything yet, just looking at the pictures and what everyone said. It sounds very promising. The idea of putting only 1 story underground and 2 up, not so promising. Obviously you save $30 million. But on the other hand, you probably wouldn't get as much support. And we know that the council has reservations, at least current council, about the size of this north location. So if you could tell us the height, and I guess you could confirm that it is a NEPA process as well, not just CEQA. And then I guess.
So just explain to Nico, what does it stand for?
NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act. So, thank you. So under our process, what typically happens is we have to trigger a CEQA process first.
That's environmental.
Environmental, that's a California process. And then what the FAA would like is to see that process completed before they start the NEPA process, the national process. So those, to your point, those 2 do happen.
The NEPA does the historic side.
No, they both do historic.
Okay.
But the secret process probably less so because it's now in the National Register, although this is also a local, so we're probably both. The FAA requires, because it's a federally funded project, that's why NEPA comes in, and that's why they use initial analysis for that.
Thank you for that. I just wasn't sure we just finished.
I used to do this for a living, so that's how I know all this stuff. But yeah, so the height. Are we gonna hear about that?
Could I ask you a question? What is your perspective on the current USO building size? Is it already too large?
It's further north, and it doesn't really impact City Hall or the other modern buildings. This is directly across from City Hall. It still is.
Knowing or seeing that it would be, the first floor would be the section kind of immediate to City Hall and renderings is a 1-story sort of, customer service area, and then the parking area is set back. Would you have objections to the setback section of parking?
It's hard to,
hard to tell. The rendering that was shown here is from a great distance, so it's, you know, it really should have been a view from City Hall looking straight across. So it's hard to tell. I mean, it looks lovely, the view. Right, the view here from the terminal looking out, looks like the same height as the baggage claim. I'm not sure, but it looks like it. This view, you can't even see I mean, I guess that tan color is the building, but it doesn't look like it extends all the way out to the street, but the render or the plan shows it, you know, going to the street, the option 1. So it's not really, not clear to me why it doesn't show that here when it actually does go to the street. So those are questions that obviously have to be answered.
And clearly, when we get to the 5th, we'll ask for those renderings. So we'll see it from City Hall and other perspectives as well. I want to make sure everybody gets their chance. Okay, Peter?
Yeah, I just want to hear about height.
Okay, good. We'll talk about the height. Who else is speaking tonight?
Vicky McLaughlin.
Stand up, if you would, please.
Yeah, I mean, really, I just want to enforce what Peter said. And the other thing is, can somebody actually give us the height in feet and inches? Because shorter doesn't really say exactly what this height is. So that's kind of one of my main concerns. The other thing is this shorter building blocking the City Hall? As you come out of the terminal. So that's my 2 questions.
Sounds good. So height and then blocking City Hall. And I don't think it's across from City Hall. I think it's further north.
So,
But
so there's a view that you look at, the page that is right after all new 3, this is 35. There's a view at the bottom right in there, you can see the view and you can see towards the.
on this page that we're looking at here? No.
Yes. And so if you see the little cars parked, that would be 1 or 2 sort of section. And then that would, your own form space there would be the sort of customer service. Like, so I understand control.
Okay. We have, I want to make sure that it gets in. We're gonna get the height, so stand by for the height, Nikki, please.
I just had one.
You say that.
I'm Chris Menrad, and I'm on the modern day, so.
Go ahead.
So in this view, we never had actually seen a rendering view from the street, except for this like view that is actually good. But I can't tell what's going on. The blue part seems to move even higher than the current building we're sitting in. So I'm curious about that. Is that always that high or something changed? Like on these here that are on drawings, it doesn't appear as this rendering shows. Doesn't seem like it's that high. So maybe could that possibly be addressed? Well, the blue is the term. I'm sorry, they don't do that. Blue is the term.
Stephanie or Mark, can you address the height issue? Because I thought Stephanie had promised to tell us the height and the height,
Yeah.
or do you have it, Stephanie?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Stephanie.
it'll be about 15 feet per level. And Brian, if you want to speak on that a little bit more.
Yeah, so part of that question is going to be in discussions in architectural, design, and obviously much later on discussions with the concessionaires on exactly the kind of vehicles that they're going to need. But 15 feet max sort of per level is sort of like a planning level max. It could come down maybe to 12 feet, but that's a good benchmark is thinking about it at like 15 feet.
So I just want to make sure that we got this right. So we're saying if it's 1 above and 2 below, it's 15 feet above ground. That's what they're saying right now. Does that make sense? Plus the stuff on the top.
How big is the balloon, which is this terminal that they're building, or the gate here, it's new gate? That was the question.
Do we have heights for the additional 7 gates that are going north, or approximate height there?
We don't have heights, but the important thing with that is that you're going to have passenger boarding bridges, and the critical aircraft is a Boeing 737. And so with that, you need to make sure that your boarding bridges can meet ADA slope requirements. to dock to the aircraft door. So
Stephanie, could we assume that, that what we have in the Bono, which is 2 stories, that would have to be the same in phase 1, gates 1 through 7?
I think that's a fair assumption.
But also they're further towards the runways. I'm not sure you would see that from the street. I don't know, but that's something we should find out.
It's rendered, but it
Yeah.
just appears like it's moving. but they-
So, before we move on, I'm sorry, we have a process that we need to address.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have any public comments in the room?
That has not spoken.
That have not spoken
for
yet?
3 minutes.
All right, public comments,
All right. Okay, to close public comments. Thank you for your public comments. And thank you all for giving us a little more time for public comments. All right. So we'll have these questions answered with additional renderings for December 5th. So this has been very helpful. And we'll see what from the street, what you see in gates 1 through 7, the new gates and what the implications are. So we can ask our team to get all that ready. Are we ready to, are there any other comments from commissioners? Are we ready to take a vote?
One last question.
Please.
Harry, you talked about the flexibility of the plan and how things can change. If we do 2 below, 1 up now, can you come back at a later time and say, we can't build anything unless we do 1 below and 2 up? I mean,
Yes.
that can still be a
Yes.
decision.
Okay, lots of information coming at us like a fire hose. I need someone to propose, if you would, please.
I move that we proceed forward with staff recommendation alternative 3 hybrid model.
Do I have a second? Okay. Go for it.
Take a roll call. Thanks.
Yes.
Merriman.
Yes.
Caldwell.
Yes.
Corcoran.
Yes.
Delgado.
Yes.
Evanstein.
Yes.
Felton.
Yes.
Baum.
Aye.
Keel.
Yes.
McDermott.
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
Pye.
Yes.
Sam Lanza.
Yes.
Wise.
Yes.
Wiseman.
Yes.
And Young.
All right. So it passes, and I just wanted to say thanks to our consultants for listening to all the feedback we've got so far. There's more, but there's more to come. More to come.
For the last 2 votes, you skipped me, so it's aye on my perspective.
Yeah.
Someone should be fired.
My bad.
I should tell you. We apologize.
And first it was an agenda, I didn't care.
All right. One of the most exciting parts about phase 1 of this is the FIS, our ability to have international service here for the very first time. It's one of the most important issues for Greater Palm Springs. And we have airlines and cities that say they'd love to come to Palm Springs above and beyond all the service to Mexico. Harry, what's the latest on the FIS facility?
So contained within your agenda packet, you should have been provided the final draft of the FIS feasibility study that Aerovistas did. And we briefed the study, in their conclusions, I think in the June, maybe the May or June meeting. But this is the full document. We asked them to go through, provide us a working document and a business case, that we can provide Customs and Border Protection as the business case for starting FIS, here at the airport. Aerovistas did determine that it was feasible. In fact, they saw substantial leakage, from Palm Springs to LA.
What does that mean, Harry?
Meaning that a lot of our passengers traveling, particularly south of the border, to 2 primary destinations south of the border, choose to use LA because there's no FIS here at Palm Springs or locally. They also saw leakage to LA for Europe as well. And so based on that, they determined that there's a potential for 4 daily nonstops to Mexico, 4 different cities in Mexico, and 1 potential daily nonstop to Europe. So there is the business case. We do know that we have airlines, local airlines who are currently tenants interested in flying to at least south of the border. Nobody's indicated to Europe yet. But south of the border, we have a couple of our airlines that are interested in it. Now the hard work is getting Customs and Border Protection to get resources to Palm Springs. And so what happens next is I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to convince them that they need to take resources out of LA and bring them to Palm Springs. We are working with our city economic development department, as well as visiting the Palm Springs, the chamber, talking to the airlines about what that potential strategy could look like. One theory is a potential expansion of our foreign trade zone. Palm Springs does have a foreign trade zone here locally. So expanding that out to thermal and potentially combining our needs there when it comes to CBP resources and making the case to Customs and Border Protection that that's an opportunity to get resources here. Another opportunity for us, frankly, is the FIFA World Cup in the 2028 Olympics. There's going to be a ton of traffic going into the LA region, and so taking some of that traffic and bringing it to Palm Springs makes perfect sense. So over the next couple of weeks, I'll be meeting with the various external stakeholders. We'll be having discussions about what that looks like. We do anticipate over the spring making a formal request about Customs and Border Protection. This might require 3 or 4 requests and probably a dozen visits to DC. But we are moving in that direction. And so you have the feasibility report in your hand. Do you have any questions about that?
Please.
Do we know at this time what port director the FIS facility here would be in LA or San Diego?
It's LA.
It would be LA.
It would be the LA port director. We have been in communication with them about our desire to have enough guys. In fact, we've been talking to them for the better part of 2 years now. And we've just been waiting on this report.
Are we certain that if we expand the FIS facility here, that it wouldn't be moved to the jurisdiction of San Diego? And I only ask that because the San Bernardino field office for CIS, for immigration, is under the control of San Diego. So I'm just wondering whether or not they would move us around and whether the officer availability out of LAX versus out of San Diego would be better for us.
That part, I'm not as sure. That's kind of the internal mechanics of CBP. I can tell you that generally speaking, for all things federal, we go through LA, and that includes FAA, TSA, the Customs would likely follow.
So we're proceeding.
We're proceeding.
All right.
We don't have to schedule public comments. Does anybody here would like to make a comment?
All good.
No public comments.
All right. Let's move forward. We're gonna get an update on our Measure J projects. Just a reminder, we had 1.8 million. I want to make sure that the new commissioners know. The money that's generated at Measure J here at the airport has to stay here. So fuel purchases, some other things that are critical to Measure J. Puts a little fund. I think we had 1.8 million and we divided it across 4 different projects. Jeremy has a proposal to alter some of those investments and some good rationale why we would do it. Jeremy, go for it.
Sure, so just wanted to give you a quick update. There were 4 projects that were approved last year, I think. The water fountain, water bottle filling stations, which are now complete. It was the benches outside to do the refurbish some old benches that Harmon will give us an update on. There was flooring, to refurbish flooring in the main terminal. And then we had the shade structures along the TNC island. So we obviously put a hold on the TNC island structure just because of everything else going on with the master plan and kind of moving a lot of moving pieces, and plus it's historically protected. We're going to probably run into some challenges with the shade structures. So I think tonight we want to give you an update on the benches, which Harmon will go through, but we also want to talk to you about reallocating the money that we had for the shade to the floors, because we're the flooring costs we expect to be probably $2.5 to $3 million to refurbish all the floors in the main terminal back to the original terrazzo. So we would like to reallocate that. So that would be one item. Maybe we can go for Harmon's item first and then kind of come back to that and have a discussion about that.
Thank you, Jeremy. So one of the projects that was approved in City Council in February this year, part of the Measure J funding was to have the outdoor furniture, the concrete furniture at the Wexford terminal entrance, right by the 2 sliding doors. We worked on a design concept, which was actually being worked on by Mr. Gary Wexford, who was there earlier today. And the goal was to preserve that 1960s mid-century look as we enter towards our Wexford terminal. So I'll just share real quick what kind of concept we are working on.
and what scope we are having for that project. Okay, so these are some of the concepts. So what we are proposing is we are proposing about 10 concrete benches, about 6 feet long, along with some trash receptacles. You can see here. And also a custom made like a 1960s flying saucer style UFO bench slash planter. We worked with Mr. Baxter on this, you know, and we designed the concept about it to have that the originality of the airport. Currently, we have finalized the scope and we are making progress with this project, and we'll start the procurement process and we'll keep the commissioners in loop. And if there's a big changes to the scope of the project, we'll bring it back to your attention. However, we are ready for moving forward to procure. We did some research and we should be hopefully within the budget that is allocated to us. And at this point, if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer.
What is the commissioner who proposed this?
Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford. Oh, yeah.
Or Adam, sorry. Gerald.
He proposed it years ago. Now we're getting to. Gerald Adams is the one who proposed this and sent us renderings and also some particular sources for this. I just want to give him a shout out because it was his idea and that's how we have funded it. Questions about this? All good? Cheap seats are saying yes. It's good. The very important. That's good.
Do we have
So-
to vote, do we have to vote on moving our state money to the Florida?
Yeah, it's next. That's next.
Sorry.
So,
Can I ask a question about that? Can you give us more, texture on why we can't build those shade structures up front? I know the hospitality industry was very interested in seeing that kind of protection out front. What's the backstory?
Well, I think there's a bunch of things going on. We don't wanna, sink that kind of money into that area when we might move the TNCs. Right, and so that's our biggest concern with the master plan and moving parking and rental cars and so much moving parts going on. We might relocate the TNC, so we wanted to hold off on that and the flooring, we know we have to get into flooring because we're gonna be doing the baggage claim. We have a whole flooring master plan, the terrazzo going everywhere. We're putting it in the checkpoint, putting it in the exit lane, and the thinking was we're gonna continue to have Measure J funds and Measure D funds. So if we want to in the future, we could get back to that once all the moving pieces are kind of settled out.
Well, my understanding is we're not gonna be doing any of this construction and moving these TNCs and all this for 5 to 10 years from now.
Some of the major projects, we're talking about 5 to 10 years from now, but I think as an example, Jeremy's getting to. So one of the discussions we're having now, we had recently was the expansion of bag lane. Well, in order to do that, we need to relocate rental cars, which means we're likely to need to relocate parking, which means we need to figure out what to do with TNC. So these all have domino effects. And without any clarity around what we're gonna do long-term, I can't plan for the short term with any clarity. Does that make sense?
Well, not entirely. I'm part of the hospitality industry. I know Scott White from DGPS has been very passionate about providing the shade to the people who are coming here in the summer. We sit through these discussions, month after month, and we talk about how far out it is, that we're actually gonna be doing some of these projects. And it concerns me that something that we really need to address today, when we have people out in the heat and, 90, 110, and 126 degrees, we're for kind of squishy reasons that I'm hearing saying, well, we'll push that off to sometime in the future with other money that we're gonna get anyway. I kind of think we need more dialogue around this, and I think we should consult with the hospitality industry before we just put it into flooring. It's my view.
So what we originally had, were the carpet side of this, the flooring side of this was carpet. And then when we removed the carpet from the center area and found the original truss, almost original truss, there was a shift to say, if we did the whole Flexar terminal, if we were able to do that, and redeploy these funds to that, that would have a huge lift. And also reinforce the commitment we have to the original design of the building. I hear, the thing about the straight structures doesn't go away, that need doesn't go away, but the sense was until we have a better sense of what we're doing, let's not spend $1 million up front until we really know how this thing is gonna shift around. Now, we could argue, and that could be our vote today, to say, no, let's stick with the original plan, but our feeling has evolved around replacing carpet, the ugly carpet we have downstairs, to kind of shift to say, this terrazzo thing, if we can afford it, this would be a great time to do this, and really upgrade the look of the terminal itself. Now, we continue to gather Measure J funds. So if there's feasibility issues, Jeremy, like historical stuff or whatever, pushback that we really haven't explored yet, we could make this a priority the next step and resolve all these issues one way or another. But we're at the point now where the view is shifted to say, let's invest in it, because the terrazzo was really upgrading the look of that. So that's how the yin yang has evolved over the last 4 months.
When will we get back to that? Do you have, after tonight's vote, will we be expecting more clarity of long-term vision pretty soon?
So the vote tonight is to make a recommendation to the city council. What I really need is the city council to basically say, we concur. So we can start the CEQA process, and what that triggers is a number of things for us. Mostly that we can start planning out some of the short-term projects, and then we can get more clarity around where things are going to be. As soon as we know where things are going to be, then we can start jumping into it.
And then, do we know the timing on when the next Measure J funds might come in?
Measure J funds happen all the time, so we are constantly collecting Measure J. For instance, we just did a reconciliation through Q2 of 2024, calendar year 2024. So we have some additional funds in there that we have not earmarked for projects.
Do you know what it is?
Total projects, we had, total Measure J from 2018 through Q2 2024 was about 2.5 million. But then we taking out these projects, these 4 projects, we have an ending balance of 938,000. So almost $1 million that we can allocate for this.
And I think our original shade structure was $1 million.
Correct.
Yeah. So if we resolve these other issues, we could still divert that. We could vote to use that $1 million to go back to the state structure. I mean, no, I don't think any of us disagree that we really need it. But this idea that now we have to think about historical, we have to think about the long-term plan.
And that's through Q2, where now it's essentially, or
One more quarter.
or one more quarter
Correct.
of Measure J funds accumulating. We just haven't caught up with the accounting part.
So it's now over $1 million.
Right.
Is the notion is that we would only proceed with the terrazzo flooring, if Measure J funds are used, or is there an alternative way to do that? Without having to wait on the disposition of.
There's an alternative way. I mean, we have options. Measure J is the easy one, right? Because that's what those funds are earmarked for. So we collect money from the sale of fuel, put it into an account, and that money goes to these projects on the airport. We can look at other funding mechanisms, but remember, when we take away from other funding mechanisms, we're taking away from some of these larger projects, right? So baggage claim, outbound baggage handling system, rental car moves, things like that. I think that's what we need to be cognizant of.
So back to the shade structures, Jeremy. What else do you need to know? What do we need to find out to get the answer to David's questions around, what is the feasibility of doing this? And we understand the long range plan and moving the car rentals to the south temporarily all that's gonna have an impact. But what are the other considerations to get us the answer to that question?
Well, I mean, I think we just need to make the decision whether we're gonna spend that money in that area, no matter what happens, right? So staff, I guess, really needs to figure that out if we're gonna do that. But in addition to, we could probably do some pre-work with the historical folks and with planning and to try to figure out, what, if anything, would be acceptable. So we can certainly try to start that process now with Nikki and City. If that is even doable, but.
We have over $1 million that could go back into those. And if we do the research and it comes back and says, yeah, historical folks and everybody else says, fine, then we could go to deploy that money, the new funds to this project. We got money in the bank to do it. It's just, can we get clarity around what's possible?
Right. Yeah, I think the kind of augment what Jeremy's saying here, the big unknown is we don't want to put money into something and say, okay, we're moving the TNCs, Uber and Lyft to the GTC because that's the best place for them. Now we've dumped $1 million into shade structures that are sitting in front of the terminal.
But isn't every expenditure that we're making in the airport now in some way subject to possible incremental construction that takes place that undoes that investment in the future? I mean, everything we're doing now might be undone by the master plan at some time, maybe not everything, but many expenditures could be made irrelevant by the ultimate master plan.
Although we'd probably say that the Roswell floor, all right, would become part of the permanent structure. I think there's less risk of that happening, like we're gonna rip it up in 5 years. Maybe less risk.
I don't know, we haven't seen the designs.
Yeah, and the other thing on the shade structure is, now, if we don't know, and if people like the historical folks haven't come into this thing, we're not ready to make that decision yet. And that's, disappointing, because we've been in this for 18 months. But I don't know how long that's gonna take, but if you commit to do it, then we'll have the answer. Hey. We gotta find out exactly.
Have the objections been voiced? Because we went through a process of getting these funds approved for shape structures, and we had public discussions about it. I didn't hear any objections being raised before the base of those objections, and since raised to you in private.
I'm not following.
I'm saying we went through a process of having those funds approved for the shade structures. We voted on that. Hopefully, we went to the Measure J Commission. I believe it came to this commission as well. So there's been public process around this. So my question is, did the preservation community come to us since then to raise objections, or are we raising the objections now on their behalf?
Well, no,
I'm a preservationist. I wanted this whole building preserved when some of the people on the staff wanted to just mothball this building, which I was against. So I just want to be clear about that, but we did go through a process of getting these funds approved that was very public. So I'm wondering, where, is this an imagined objection, or is this real objection to putting these shade structures out in front for the protection of our tourists?
Well, I think we're conflating two different things. So we have, what we would typically do on the airport side is we would propose something to, say the Historic Preservation Committee or this commission that we have started a basis of design for. So we would say, this is what we envision it to be. Does this look like we're on the right track? Yes or no? Where we need to tweak and then we go back to it. So that's one thing. So we haven't had the opportunity to go through that objection process. I think what we're saying here is one of the top items on our list right now is creating an efficient and safe environment for the airport, which includes this loop road where we have commercial vehicles, Uber and Lyft, taxi, and trying to figure out where those activities on the airport that make sense so that we're not having trauma on the roadways as we cross the walkway. Until we make that decision, until we know where things are going to go, from our perspective, it's bad business to install the shades the shade structures until we know where they're gonna go. Especially knowing that those are very short-term activities for us, those moves, those are within the next year to 2 years. So I think that's where we're kind of coming from.
With permission, with permission, can we open up to public comment? Fred, did you want to say something?
I just had really.
Fred, just, who are you and all that?
My name's Fred Bell, I'm the vice chairman of the Palm Springs Area Museum. I always hate going back when I was in 1932, but having dealt with large facilities almost my entire career, the maintenance costs, just listening to this, the maintenance cost of getting rid of the carpet and the maintenance, alleviating yourselves of that maintenance, that carpet is a magnet for every amount of traffic. It's a magnet for every bit of like dust and it stays in that carpet no matter how you clean it. So if you can get to a hard floor, I don't want to get into the shade structures, the vitality of that or whatever, because they're important. But if you can figure out how to get rid of that carpet, it will be a louder space because it's harder surfaces. But in the long run, it will be a huge benefit on your maintenance and maintaining the building because you can actually, with the machines they have today, and we use them across the way to maintain our 91,000 feet. They're very quick. Clean it very quickly. And it's not like it used to be. You have a guy down there with a mop bucket trying to mop 30,000 feet of flooring. Second comment, I did talk to Gerald Ford about charging stations. I think he died before he said anything anyway, but on the other side, if there's any shekels that pop loose in the carpet, we really could use 4 electric vehicle charging stations on the other side. And we can't make them work financially. We looked at Mr. J a few times, we can't make them work financially because of the ground lease. And then all the easements with Edison, the only way they really work is under some sort of a donation or a public endowment or whatever. So if at some point in the future, when you're looking at the Gerald Ford Fund, I would be much happier if someone could figure out how to kick for charging stations out, because we really don't have any on that side of the airport.
We're still waiting for the ones on ours.
Yes.
Right? Loud and clear, Fred.
Do we have any further public comments in the room? We have no further public comments.
Any other comments from commissioners? All right, so let's just make sure that we're all on the same page. So if we approve tonight to move the $1 million or the total money to do the trousel floors, can we then also start this process of just letting us know what we gotta do to do the shade structures?
Yes.
If we can get that done, so at least we know, and we have more than $1 million we could apply to this, because the need still exists, and yes, we did approve this. But if we're not ready to make that decision today, I'm not sure I wanna hold up on the floors. And we can do both, but it just means staff agrees, you gotta come back to us and tell us how to get this done.
Can we just move the $1 million from the accumulated Measure J funds, and leave the shade structure money? No, we have to go back to Measure J Commission for moving this money in the first place. We don't have, is that correct?
Just goes to council.
It does not, to go back to Measure J.
No.
Does it?
Correct. We do have to go back to Measure J to earmark the remaining funds that we have in there. So that would have to go back to them.
I'm sorry, the remaining funds that we said we would apply to the shade structures, or just changing this to the trousel boards, they gotta approve that too.
So I'm not sure about having to go back to change it to the new, to reallocate the money, but the additional funds that we had, they're in the remaining balance of about $1 million. If we're going to do something with that, we need to
Right,
go
we need
back
their
to
approval.
Measure J. Yes.
Measure J did vote for that money to go to shade structure. I don't think we have the right to take the Measure J allocation and move it over to another category. I don't think that's the way to, where's the attorney there? It's his domain.
I think I might make a recommendation here to bring back this item next month with more information regarding the shade structures and the process. My initial inkling is, Measure J Commission or Measure J Committee controls recommendations about spending of Measure J money. So I don't necessarily know if the Airport Commission can unilaterally decide to move funds around. I'd have to check in with that and, make sure our what our governance process is. But, in response to that, though, I think with the questions regarding the shade structures and how that will work out, it might make sense to bring this item back at the next meeting with some additional information for everyone to consider.
I have a question for Victoria.
And then I saw your number too, Commissioner Caldwell, so we'll get right to you. Go ahead.
Where are you with your interactions with the finance director over Measure D, which has, I believe, has not moved any money and would be on an ongoing basis about half the amount of what Measure J generates, and notably, there's no Measure D permission. It's just an administrative procedure on finance's part, maybe a budget adjustment between council.
So we can definitely talk about that at the next, we can put it on the agenda for the next commission meeting. But yes, at one point, the director of finance had brought it to our attention. And we do have some funds in there, about 1.1 million, but we'll have to talk about that at the next commission meeting because we need to agenda. We need to put it on the agenda.
So
Could you tell us what Measure T is, Jeff? It's the second sales tax measure that was passed around 2017 for additional 0.5% sales tax. But it was done without a sunset clause and without commission.
So I just want to clarify, are we saying we're going to postpone until next meeting until we get clarity on shade structure? Or are we comfortable with that, or do you want to take a vote on?
No, it sounds like the attorneys recommended we postpone.
All right, good. We'll move it for a month.
Quick, just 25 seconds.
I'm sorry.
I can understand the sentiments of Councilman Felton, Airport Commissioner Felton, but I know he's thinking, he said we're going to do this, voted on it, what are we waiting on? But I do understand what you're saying also. But can a structure be configured where if we have to move it, it can be moved to where the new TNC is? That's my question.
A temporary.
I'm sure, maybe, I don't know, I mean, we're not there yet.
Okay, well, yeah, so with a lot of money probably, but I think we learned, especially with these shade structures out here, post-security, that's gonna be really challenging depending on where you go.
Okay, that's my question.
All right, so we're going to postpone this, push it to next month. We'll get an update.
I don't know if we'll have enough information by next commission meeting, but we'll certainly try.
I mean, if nothing else, let's figure out the historical. I mean, I just can't imagine if we're gonna get pushback on everything else we're doing here, that somebody would have issues with shade structure above the year.
It's not preservation community, it's the fact that this is Westland's first site. So Sarah Yoon, who's the historic preservation officer, has to evaluate it, and then it probably has to go to the historic site preservation board. But it's not that or else like that.
No, it's, but thank you, I mean, we need more information.
Yeah.
We need to motion, let's postpone the vote.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna go and get as much information as we possibly can from those resources, and how we can even do it. And then we'll look at this a month from now.
We
good?
We need a motion accepting to postpone the vote.
So
Second. Roll call on this.
Banks,
Yes.
Merriman,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Hooker,
Yes.
Evanstein,
Yes.
Felton,
Yes.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Hedrick, Keel, Yes. Martin,
Yes.
McDermott,
Yes.
Pye,
I'm confused.
or postponing the vote.
Go ahead, Jen.
I thought we were voting on the floor.
Yeah, right now we're voting on postponing the vote until
By the next meeting, we'll get information on both.
But I thought the shade structure is what we were postponing, not this vote.
It was on the floor is to push it all off until next month, when we'll get information on both.
On both?
Yeah, number one, on the shade, on the flooring thing, does it have to go back to Measure J, yes or no? And then on the shade structure, from a historic preservation point of view, will they even allow it, along with everything else we've talked about tonight? So we'll have more information next month, try to make the decision how to move forward.
On
both.
Can you read the motion? It's a motion to postpone the vote to shift funding to the floor, to postpone it. Oh, the agenda, postpone it.
To next month's meeting, where we'll get more information.
You're voting on the postponement from next time. I say yes. I'm still.
Sam Lasker?
Yes.
Wise? Wiseman?
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it moves to next month, and you guys will do your best to get as much information as possible. To start. Let's have something fun, like the holiday season preparation. Jeremy, Jake, you want to tell us quickly about this? We have a lot of other stuff to get through.
Yes, very briefly. No, I'm sorry. No, that's a long meeting, so I will be quick. Hey, everybody, I'm Jake Ingracia, for those of you who I haven't met, marketing and communications specialist here. And we have started our holiday messaging around our busy time of year here at the airport out into the public. And so just wanted to give you a glimpse of what that looks like. So we are expecting a passenger surge next week for the Thanksgiving holiday. We're gonna see roughly 34,000 departing passengers from Tuesday to Sunday Thanksgiving week, with the peak days Tuesday and Wednesday before Thanksgiving and the Sunday after, on average about 6,500 passengers on each of those days. We know the busy time at the airport here is going to be from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Right in that midday rush when a lot of flights take off and a lot of flights land. So we can expect, tough lines and congestion here in the terminal. We're messaging all of this out to the community now to give them the opportunity to plan ahead, hopefully avoid some of that last minute stress. So our messaging includes arriving early. We're saying 2 hours in advance to check your luggage and 90 minutes if you're carrying on. And you can expect during those peak times, 10 to 2, security lines of up to 30 minutes there at the checkpoint. The good news is we have expanded our checkpoint. We've added a 7th TSA screening lane this year from last, increasing that throughput by hundreds of passengers during those peak hours, and hopefully reducing those wait times. So we will look forward to seeing that this year. And of course, we're messaging the high parking demand as well. We know that this is a peak period for parking. We're gonna see those main lots out in front of the terminal fill up quickly. And so the overflow lot will be in play, activating this Friday before Thanksgiving, going straight through to Tuesday after with shuttle service to and from the terminal, all the way through the last arrival of the night. We're also urging passengers just to consider alternative transportation to avoid any of those possible setbacks and hopefully skip that problem altogether. You can take Uber, Lyft, phone a friend. So consider that before you travel here this Thanksgiving. But if you are going to be parking here, check out our parking availability tool. It's right on the homepage at flypsp.com. There's an arrow there, but it's in a red box, and you can see section by section each lot, whether it's limited, open, or full even, we will probably see this week. We know that lots A and B in front of the terminal fill up the fastest, they have the lowest capacity, they're the closest to the front. C and D have more capacity, they're a little further, but you're more likely to find a spot there. And then some good news, concessions, we are nearing completion of our concessions refresh, which by early 2025 will bring 7 new restaurants and 5 new storefronts. A lot of those new options already open right now, which is great. An improvement from last season when we had a lot of closures. However, ongoing construction is still affecting some of our dining options. So we're also messaging that out to our passengers, just to manage expectations. We could see, reaching capacity in our restaurants, wait times at our restaurants as well. We're messaging out there are grab and go kiosks throughout the terminal, as well as the new Fig and Plum salad and sandwich stand opening this week down in the courtyard. So you don't have to eat at a restaurant, there's other options too.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does this look like to the public? Well, at the top of our homepage, you're gonna see this alert bar up there, Thanksgiving travel alert with some of those key points. It's there right now today. And we're also pushing it out through all of our channels. So a press release has already gone out to traditional media. I'll be doing TV interviews this week and next. You'll see online articles about it, as well as continuing messaging on our social with helpful tips and everything I presented to you today. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So, I use Clear, and I'm just wondering if that plays into this at all. If you coordinate with Clear, does that actually help to reduce lines when customers are encouraged to enroll in Clear? How does that work?
Yeah, you'll see during those peak periods, even the TSA pre-check line is longer than the Clear one. So honestly, Clear is a great option, if you're not already enrolled.
Any public speakers?
We have no scheduled public speakers, and we have no public speakers.
Okay, Jay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kevin, tell us about operations. You had a meeting today?
Yeah, we met at 4 o'clock over here in the same room. Covered 6 items, just the time I'll go through things pretty quickly. We have a piece of winglet art that the Air Museum has available for us to install pretty quickly. It's a pretty cool little piece of art in history. It's a bone winglet. And we'll bring it for a vote here at the land commission meeting next month. We also covered just some information on the earthquake plan, a couple highlights from there. They are working with the governor's office on some planning for how Palm Springs Airport would be involved in distribution in the event of an earthquake. And there's also the expectation that an emergency management coordinator will be joining the ranks of the airport soon in the next few months that will help also help bring all of this stuff. Next, Wi-Fi update, just updated all the interior areas of the building, have upgraded Wi-Fi now. We're still working on the courtyards and the front exterior. Parking planning, we talked about some of the stuff that we covered with David a little bit earlier, and just trying to get our heads wrapped around the options and what's going on with parking and empty and C lots for the future. And I think it's all going to be an ongoing agenda item on our committee. Then we just touched briefly on the grass watering schedule attended by the city, and we'll probably come back to that at a future point. And lastly, there was a concessions place that had triggered a lot of comments online about air conditioning issues. And so we're just curious what that situation was. And we learned that it was, some of the concessionaire that mishandled was there on air conditioning installed, and they have since rectified the situation. That's me.
Any questions?
We have any public comments?
With the pleasure of the chair, can I give a little bit of background on the winglet? It's coming back for a vote next meeting.
2 minutes, go for it.
The Air Museum is proposing this. This is a winglet that operates off the aircraft that you currently fly. The reason we're suggesting it is Joe Clark was a Coachella Valley resident. He passed away in Palm Springs. He is a member, he was nominated and accepted in the National Aviation Hall of Fame in 2022. He was a low profile guy. The winglet, from a sustainability standpoint, has saved 10 billion gallons of fuel since it was invented. And Joe did all that, but he was a very low profile person. You wouldn't know he lived here. We talked with Boeing about this and actually stepped in front of this piece. It's about $1.5 million piece of art. It's about 8 feet around, about 16 feet tall. And we stepped in front of it and said, it's relevant here. It really should be here because he lived, he died here. He started Horizon Air. So there's a reason why it should live here. The area that we're talking about is in the FAR terminal. In the back of that terminal And we understand that the Howard County and are going to do that activation in the middle. We don't have a problem with that. The signage that would go on it would be a blurb about Joe Clark, 2 paragraphs, a couple of paragraphs about the airport's history, a couple of paragraphs about the future, the expansion, and a paragraph about what the Air Museum does and why we do it here. That's in a nutshell, and next month we'd ask, if the AWAs have no objection, we would ask that we approve it in Boeing. Just on the economics, there's no cost to Palm Springs. We will insure it, we will maintain it. Boeing has agreed to set it up. So the only thing that we have to do is find a place to put it. That's it. And we'll take all the liability. That's great. Thank you very much. Absolutely. I know I stand between you and getting out of here. What's the approval process with Hughes and the trust? There is. We don't need to get their blessing for this. No. That's it.
Well, I think that's what the committee, kind of wanted us to communicate with the activation space that they were comfortable with putting the,
I mean, I think if we're gonna go in their terminal, we should definitely talk to them. And the question is, who's gonna reach out and what's the process? Are we just gonna go through Hughes or are we gonna go through?
I would recommend to have a chat with Nikki, and since Nikki's been kind of dealing with the activation space, and Nikki and Barry probably need to figure out how to have that conversation with Hughes and
then we vote, so we'll have the information. So just confirm, we'll get their feedback, hopefully it's no problem. Then we'll vote on it next month. When do you think you'll install
As soon as you tell me that it's sitting in the Annenberg hangar and Boeing is ready to move. So as soon as you tell me I can install it, I'd like to get it done before the holidays because we'll lose those crews for about 4 weeks. So.
All right, so assuming that the tribes, the casinos bless this idea and it's okay with them, then we could give green light and then just rubber stamp it in December. Yes. All right, good. We'll do our best.
No, I think the odds of that Clinic has any problem with it is pretty low, because it would be literally behind their install, and you probably wouldn't even be able to see it past their install. That's done.
And it's a beautiful piece of artwork. I mean, it's absolutely magnificent, I think.
My only concern is, and it's not a concern, is that the part of the activation includes a great big screen on the far side of the entrance. So if you're putting it in the middle, it could interfere with your screen. If it's off to the sides, I don't think there's an issue.
It should be well beyond past the activations.
But the activation had a great big television thing on the far wall, which was part of the deal. So we're just gonna have to figure that out with them and see. But that's great. That's great. We'll do our best. All right. Okay to move forward? Marketing.
All right. Wanted to say thank you to those commissioners who joined us at our marketing and business development meeting a couple weeks ago. Really appreciate the contributions that you made. I know the marketing department has been very busy. I don't want to undercut any of the energy they've put into all the initiatives that they've been working on, but I am mindful that many of you have been here since 4 o'clock this afternoon, so I will keep this as brief as I can. The first thing I wanted to share with you is the crisis communications plan. Much like our master plan, the FAA does require that we undertake this study to ensure compliance with safety protocols. Part of what the team is doing is they're going to be developing a dedicated website, which is going to be kind of an emergency microsite, similar to what you saw Jake show us a few minutes ago at the very top. You'll see banners in the event of a crisis here on the field that will update and provide live updates in real time. It's a site that's very easy for the team to manage. It's also mobile friendly. And the commitment is, regardless of what's going on, whether there are updates that need to be made, you'll see something every 8 hours in the event of an active crisis. So that is definitely underway. The second piece is our capital improvement program, another microsite in the making. Again, some of the things that we've been hearing, obviously in the community is that we do want to communicate the progress that we're making here on the field. And so this is going to enable us to provide the public with updates and information on the various initiatives that we're undertaking. We're talking about key initiatives, the funding sources, status updates, and more. That also is going to live on our flypsp.com website /progress. There may be an opportunity for us to redirect through the acquisition of a microsite domain name to be continue to be seen. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but the folks who build and maintain our current website, flypsp.com, they're also working on that for us. Finally, how many of us have had a chance to go and take a look at Fly My Airport on the website? Where we can actually book travel. We can book hotels, you can book cars, you can book flights. The piece that's most interesting to obviously the marketing team and the folks here at the airport is the data that we're able to collect. So Daniel and the team brilliantly negotiated the opportunity for us to basically get that information from Fly My Airport, FMA. That is going to be hugely beneficial. Not only is this going to inform some of our key initiatives from a marketing perspective moving forward and the strategies and the plans that we want to undertake for the future, but it's also going to give them the information they need to go back to our partners and make the case. Hey, we've got service going from point A to point B. Folks are looking for it, and we have hard numbers and real data. So that is absolutely huge. Just to give you some ideas, last month, the top 3 purchases that were made from here on our website last month were in New York, Seattle, and Phoenix. So again, it aligns with what we're doing strategically here on the field. And finally, our customer experience program, as we know, we had a request for proposals that closed today. And so we will be sharing those updates in the coming months.
Excellent. Questions?
So in that Fly My Airport, does that also capture people who are hunting for something that doesn't exist?
Yeah, and that's why it's so important, because again, he can go back, Daniel can go back to the folks and say, look, people are looking for flights to here, and that, whatever that case may be. So again, they need the actual hard data, and that's why this is gonna be so critical. Yeah.
Is that potentially skewed segment of flyers though, that would be looking through that versus other, like airline or hotel portals? I mean,
Kayak, it's powered by Kayak, so it's the same technology. You know, presumably, good question, not sure. I think it's one of the new things that we just started rolling out here, so it remains to be seen. We are getting data from where people are searching from. So I do know that just in looking at some of the reports, we do have a lot of searches coming from Palm Desert, Indio, Greater Coachella Valley for obvious reasons, because I know it exists, but I think the team is going to be pushing that out there more broadly.
Does it get data from the Kayak searches, or does it only get it from people who come specifically to the site?
To our site.
Any public comments?
We have no public comments.
All right, let's move forward. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you so much. Victoria, financial update. How are we doing?
We're doing great. I do have a presentation, but I'm just gonna ask everyone if you have any questions to please let me know.
Oh, I think we should go to the presentation. Are we okay? All right, good. We'll give you more time next month, but thank you.
Okay.
All right, concessions update. Oh, public comments? No public comments?
No public comments.
Jeremy?
Concessions, I don't think I put a calendar update in your packet. Because at the time, nothing had changed. However, I'm just gonna give you a little bit of heads up warning that it looks like we are gonna take some delay with both Trio and Vino Boa as we've been running into some construction issues. So I don't know what those delays are yet, but just wanted to kind of give you that forewarning. I think Jake mentioned Big and Plum was gonna open, I think next week, I think is what the plan is. Tomorrow or next day, so that should be opening any day. We're also bringing out the coffee cart, I heard, I think tomorrow morning. So that's good, and then Pink Door is kind of our next one that everybody's really excited about. And that starts construction, just after Thanksgiving. So we're hoping that's about a 2-month project, and so we should see that open somewhere in the late January to early February for the pink door on that's the non-sterile side right down here at the bottom of the stairs. So we're all excited about that, and I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
Questions? Progress, a little bit sure. Public comments? No public comments. All right. Let's move to employment update. Let's put a little context on this. We supported the additional 52 headcount to the city council 2 years ago. And we've been, you know, when we have these discussions about projects not being done, we don't have the staff, we don't have the bandwidth to get them done. There's an ongoing dialogue that we've been having with the city about how do we get more resources, how do we get the right people, how do we get these positions? So I asked Harry, and some of you have been involved in that, some of you have not been involved in those discussions, but we've been trying to advocate for Harry and the team to get these positions filled so that they can be more responsive to a lot of the requests we've been making of them. So I asked Harry if he would start to include the employment update as a standard piece of our meeting, so we can have visibility into what progress we're making in getting the staffing done here. Harry, go for it.
All right, so if you look in your agenda packet, there should be a report in there. It was actually drafted by Human Resources on the status of hiring for the airport. I won't go through the entire report. I will say that we still have a number of unfilled positions. Some of them have yet to be recruited, and we were expecting those. We phased most of those out throughout the year, so in the coming months, we should start to see those recruitments go out. But one of the big challenges we're having is specific to our deputy director of planning and engineering position. We've recruited for that position 3 times. Jeremy and I have interviewed at least 5 times. We've made 2 offers. The salary is the huge problem in getting that position filled. And it's a critical position for us. Obviously, this is the position that runs all of our capital programs. So everything that we're planning in the master plan process, all the small projects, all the nuances of the airport that nobody knows about, that is their job to understand and to program and to work on that. So we've been trying to get that position onboarded for quite a while. It says on the report that it's been out for 421 days. My latest question to Human Resources, because they're using an external recruiter, is, okay, when is this gonna go back in? And oh, by the way, we were told last time that we were getting a comp study on this position. Where's that? And I'm not sure if they didn't get my email. I'm gonna follow up. I don't have answers to that. I do have a meeting with HR tomorrow, so hopefully they'll have answers for me. But really, that position is key. We are still, just in general, with middle management and senior level positions, this is gonna be an ongoing thing, mostly because our positions at the airport are benchmarked against those throughout the rest of the city. And we're competing, sometimes for shortfall of talent, you know, with other cities who are throwing more resources into the game. So, I'll keep you all updated if you have questions for me.
I have a comment, but any questions before I pipe up? So, this process where an engineer in the city gets paid something and engineer for the airport, it's just not at par. These positions are not at par. And so, we've had conversations with city council members to make them aware of this challenge. And what I've been told is these jobs need to be rescored, and where we need to, especially for this position, where we need to step up and increase the salary for those positions because it's unique to the airport, we should be able to do that. So I'm hoping that as, especially the new council gets socialized into the challenge we have here, that we'll get more support to try to change the rules on that. Because 2 of them said, if we've been 400 days trying to find this critical position, and the feedback is we've made 2 offers and it's not enough money, then we should change the salary structure. We should find out what this thing is gonna cost and then put it out there. So to the extent that we may get a little more support in air cover from council and how that comes down both to you and to HR, we're really gonna push this from our perspective, from the commission's point of view, that we've got to get more support to change the scope of these positions and the amount that's being paid. I mean, me, to have that critical position go out twice, and we get turned down because of salary, and it's now 400 days. To me, that's unacceptable. Something's gotta change, and I think we're gonna get the support from council to do that. So, buckle up, air cover on the way we go. But, we're gonna look at this on a monthly basis, because it's a huge delta in trying to get stuff done here. So, next month, we'll spend a little more time, we'll go a little deeper into the numbers, but that's what's going on here, and as a commission, we're trying to reinforce the support we gave 2 years ago to get these headcount, make sure they get filled.
I found this detail really useful, so thank you to both of you for making this happen.
Any public comments?
We have no public comments.
All right, well, let's move. Projects and capital plans, Harry.
And then my projects and capital improvement program update, was provided in written form, so I won't go through that, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to discuss and answer those.
We good? Any public comments?
We have no public comments.
Again, it's late next month, we'll give this a little bit more focus, but anything else in your executive director update here?
Nothing noteworthy. Sorry.
Commissioners' comments, reports, anything else from commission? We're all good? Okay, our next meeting is, December 5th is public forum. You know, there's restrictions on the number of commissioners who can show up at the same, so we don't violate the Brown law. So Brown Act, the nod from our attorney. Oh, yes, we haven't forgotten. But please reach out to people. As you see how the details on our long range plan had shifted for all good reasons, based on all the great feedback we're getting from all these different presentations we're making. It's really important. I have a bunch of friends that have a strong point of view about some of this stuff. I'm sure you do as well. I'm encouraging everybody to show up and spend some time and really see how this is evolving and how we're listening to the feedback and trying to make good decisions and recommendations. So, December 5th, right? At the convention center starts at 5:30? Correct. All right, so please, and those of you watching at home, please come see what we're working on and all that good stuff. Any other comments from commissioners? Any other things we have to do? Are we good? Good. We're good. All right, so I want to thank the staff for all the preparation for this. I want to thank each of you for your patience. It was a long meeting tonight, but I think we made some good decisions. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all.